So you've landed a U.S. federal grant. That's huge. But along with that funding comes a rulebook, 2 CFR Part 200, also known as the Uniform Guidance. Now, I know it sounds like a dense legal document, but I want you to think of it a different way. It's the official owner's manual for your award. And today, we're going to open it up and see exactly how it works.
I mean, that's the feeling, right? You get that incredible news. Your proposal was accepted. The award is coming through. It is an amazing moment. But pretty soon after the celebration, that big question hits you. Now what? How do we actually manage this money the right way and, not mess anything up?
Well, that's exactly where 2 CFR 200 comes into play. And look, I get it. The words government regulation can sound a little intimidating. But it's so much more helpful to see this as your owner's manual. It's not there to trip you up. It's actually designed to be your guide to help you and your project succeed. To make it all make sense, we're going to walk through the entire life of a grant. First, we'll cover the why, why this rulebook even exists. Then we'll jump into what you need to do the second you win an award. After that, it's the nitty-gritty, managing the money and spending it the right way. And finally, we'll wrap up with how to cross the finish line with closeouts and audits.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, the Federal Awards Rulebook. Because before we get into all the specific rules, it's really important to understand the why behind it all.
So picture this. Before this guidance came along, every single federal agency had its own separate set of rules. It was frankly a nightmare for anyone trying to manage grants. The whole point of 2 CFR 200 was to fix that, to streamline everything. It creates one single government-wide framework for the rules, the costs, and the audits. It just makes life so much more consistent and, honestly, easier for everyone.
Okay, so you've officially won the award. The confetti has settled. What happens now? This phase is all about understanding who's who in the zoo and what you need to do right out of the gate.
First things first, do these rules even apply to you? Well, the guidance uses this term non-federal entity, or NFE for short. So if your organization is a state or local government, an Indian tribe, a university, or a nonprofit, and you've received a federal award, then yep, you're an NFE. This owner's manual is for you.
Now here is something that trips a ton of people up. What is the difference between a subrecipient and a contractor? Okay, think of it this way. A subrecipient is a true partner. They're helping you carry out the mission of the grant, and they even have a say in programmatic decisions. But a contractor, they're just providing a specific good or service. So if a university gets a grant to study water quality, the company that sells them the testing kits is a contractor. But the local nonprofit that helps them do community outreach, that's a subrecipient. Getting this right is absolutely critical because totally different rules apply to each one.
From the moment you start, the name of the game is transparency. The Uniform Guidance is crystal clear about this. You have to immediately, in writing, disclose any potential conflicts of interest. And if you come across any credible evidence of serious stuff, like fraud or bribery, you have a duty to report it right away. This builds a foundation of integrity for the entire project.
All right, let's dive into the day-to-day stuff. How do you actually manage the money? This section is all about the systems and procedures, your internal controls, that you absolutely need to have in place.
What are internal controls? Well, a great way to think about them is as the financial plumbing of your organization. They're the processes that safeguard the money, make sure your reports are accurate, and just generally keep things running smoothly. And let me be clear, strong controls aren't just a nice to have. They are the absolute bedrock of compliance.
The guidance can get really specific. And here's a perfect little example. Let's say you get advance payments from the government and you put them in an account that earns interest. Well, you're allowed to keep up to $500 of that interest each year to help with your admin costs. But anything you earn over that $500 has to go back to the government. It's a tiny detail, but it shows you the level of precision we're talking about.
So when it's time to buy something with your grant money, you can't just go out and buy it. You have to follow specific procurement rules. It all depends on how much you're spending. For tiny things, you can use micro purchases. For bigger stuff, you might need sealed bids, where you basically pick the lowest price, or competitive proposals, where you're looking at things like qualifications and quality, not just the cost. And that last one, non-competitive procurement, that's only for really rare, specific situations. A little pro tip. If you ever use it, you better have some rock-solid documentation explaining exactly why it was your only option.
And now, we've arrived at the section that's probably on everyone's mind, spending the money.
This is where we break down what you can and, just as importantly, what you cannot charge to your federal award. So, for any cost to be considered allowable, it has to pass a 5-part test. It's a great mental checklist. You have to ask yourself, 1, is it necessary and reasonable? 2, is it allocable, meaning does it directly benefit this specific project? 3, do you treat this kind of cost consistently in your own policies? 4, does it follow any rules or limitations in your actual award agreement? And 5, the big one, is it properly documented? You need a yes to all 5 of those questions to charge it to the grant. And just to give you a quick feel for it, here's a look at some common examples. Things you would expect, like materials, professional services, and travel costs for the project, those are generally okay. But things like advertising, lobbying, or, and this should be obvious, goods for personal use, those are pretty much always a no-go. When in doubt, your owner's manual has the complete list.
Let's talk about accountability for a second. This is serious stuff. Every single time you submit a financial report, someone in charge at your organization has to sign a certification. And I want you to just take a second and read this quote directly from the regulation. You are personally certifying that everything is true and accurate, and you're acknowledging that you know the severe penalties for fraud. This is not just checking a box, it's a legal promise.
We're in the home stretch. So what happens when your project work is done? This final section is all about what it takes to cross the finish line properly. Closeout, audits, and final accountability.
Okay, when your awards period of performance ends, the clock starts ticking on some very strict deadlines. Your subrecipients usually get 90 days to pay all their final bills. Then you, the main recipient, get 120 days to get all your final reports submitted and to pay off your own project bills. You absolutely want to get these dates on your calendar way in advance because they are not suggestions. And finally, there's something called a single audit. Now, if your organization spends more than a certain amount of federal money in 1 year, you'll need one of these. But don't let the word audit scare you. The goal is actually to make things more efficient. Instead of having every single federal agency come audit you separately, you get one big, uniform audit that covers everything. It's a huge piece of the government's accountability system. So there you have it, 2 CFR 200. It might seem like a lot, but at the end of the day, it's just your owner's manual. It gives you the structure, the rules of the road, and the safeguards to help make your federally funded project a huge success. So the manual is open, and you know how to read it. The only real question left is, are you ready to build something great?